啊，我在北京，
啊，这两天是不是很冷啊？
冻成狗，今天已经穿上了是我最厚的羽绒服。
对对对对，突然降温了。我们在这边呢，也是感觉的这个很明显的降温，变化特别大。
您现在是在香港吗？还是
我现在在深圳啊，
在深圳？
对对对，
深圳很好啊，现在是湾区的核心啊。
哦，这个主要是呃暖和一点，暖和一点。城市嘛，离香港也近，方便啊。
李辉老师进来了。
Okay, can you hear me? Testing, testing, testing.
可以的。
Yes，
好。那个米一啊，待会儿他有一个会，所以他那个讲完以后得赶紧走。这个可能他听不到咱们的意见了。反正这个 Edgar 你在录影是吧 ？Video recording。OK， 所以如果有什么意见，事后呢，米一可以再看 video。
没问题，谢谢李老师。
好的，大家都很忙的，因为咱这个会议搞得还挺长的。这个全天我们从早上、中午一直到晚上。那个这一场应该是Edgar， 这场我是 chair 是吧？
对。
好的，然后你是 discussion 哈。
对。
Okay, so let me share with you my screen. Okay, you have the screen, right? So Mingyi, I'll give you 20 minutes. Okay, can you start?
Okay, thank you. Yes.
Thank you so much.
And good afternoon, everyone. I'm in Beijing now, and it's my great honor to be a part of this joint symposium and also for a to-be published journal. And actually today, I would love to share some research experiences and also some qualitative materials we collected in China and Norway. So the main focus for this article is about exploring teachers' belief about young children's play and learning, a qualitative study from China and Norway. You might know that actually about how to define play and learning and also how to understand the concepts of play and learning have been documented in many literature, but also in the policy curriculum, we call it curriculum documents. So we would love to have this focus in this qualitative study. And our colleagues include Oster Bertland and Yang Yang. So first of all, I would love to share just some very initial thoughts. To be honest, I had collected all the data, but did not start to analyze this in a very carefully way. So first of all, I would love to provide some introduction, LR, literature review, research design, and also share some preliminary results. And I would love to get more discussions and feedbacks from all of you. Okay, now the next part, introduction. Well, in terms of this comparative research focus, we want to try to investigate how China and Norwegian, Chinese and Norwegian teachers understood play and learning in the kindergarten. So we selected two kindergarten sites in the two countries. So these two countries, China and Norway, as you know, with distinct pedagogical traditions, readiness for school, or called it social pedagogy, have been documented in OECD report in 2006. So for these two countries, you know that have been priority differently in terms of how to define play and learning. However, both Chinese and Nordic scholars had already simultaneously argued for a third approach for ECE beyond the dichotomy of the social pedagogical and preparation for school approach. So this is why we use this, we could call it purposely sampling, to select these 2 countries to explore how the kindergarten teachers understand play and learning. In terms of the literature review, actually there is new matter. We might not able to call it meta-analysis, but actually we could call it a synergies, a synergize international researcher on ECE practitioners' view on play-based learning, try to connect play and learn, play and learning, play-based learning, and found ECE practitioners had different view on the degree of conceptual compatibility between play and learning. So actually this topic gets a little bit more debated now when you look at its different contexts in diverse national background. But field studies target China and Norway in terms of this dialogue, this issue. So this is why we want to explore this issue in these 2 countries. Okay, next, please. In terms of the research design, we consider to combine our data in a few different ways. First, we want to explore some discourse analysis for the curriculum document. Try to focus on how the policy documents, since Norway issued a new document, kindergarten plan in year 2017, and in China, we issued the early learning standard guidelines in year 2012. So quite new for the 2 countries. And then we want to explore, actually we finished this part, number 2. We had collect data in 2 targeted sites, one kindergarten in Beijing, another one in Bergen, Norway, were examined by qualitative methodology. So because we used the purposeful sampling, teachers from the 2 contexts were interviewed to provide the understanding and also selected 2 preferred examples about play and learning and about the relationship between play and learning. So I want to highlight in this part, actually we collect the data in 2 folds. First, we did some semi-structured interview to ask the teachers how to define play and learning, how to connect them together. And second, we asked the teacher to provide 1 preferred examples from their daily life. They considered it could be a good example to show their views about play and learning. So actually, we had 3 sources for data. And what they found now is just some preliminary results. Okay, next, please. So in the policy discourse analyzed, I think quite clear for us now that the Chinese documents show a transition of learning and playing pattern since year 2001, but more and more emphasize, we could call it the original value of play. So you might heard about like the NG play, talk about the learning inside play. Norway retained the social pedagogy tradition, but tried to pay more attention to teachers' role or teachers' participation in play. So quite interesting. It seemed that the 2 countries tried different approach, but at the same time, they seem to, I think, getting a little bit more closer now. And in the interview analysis, definitely teachers show different opinions in terms of how to define play and learning. And they had different focal point of play and learning. And according to the observation for the preferred examples recommended, to be honest, we did not have video clips in this part. We just had some photos and had some few notes for the observation. As you might know that in Norway, quite difficult to get video clip for the kids. So this is what we had finished now. We do hope to get your support in terms of how to figure out some theoretical framework to better explore the data and also to have a more tight logic structure in terms of the research questions and the research.
Okay, thank you, Mingyi. It's very efficient, very short. Since you have 20 minutes, so you have saved 12 minutes for discussion. Okay, that's a good point. And Wei Peng, are you ready to make comments now, or do you need more time, or you want to do in one time for the 3 or 4 presentations?
Yeah, actually, I think we can just leave it to the end so that we can discuss together. What do you think?
Okay, so I will share with you my screen to give quick points and feedbacks to Mingyi in case she needs more input from me. So please, your college, stop sharing your screen. I'm going to share my screen with you. Okay. Now, can you see my screen? Okay, good. Me and your study is very interesting because Norway versus China, the pair has not been studied before. So this study will be very interesting. So very happy you're going to contribute your study to our special issue. And you found that the 2 countries are learning from each other and moving forward to each other. So they are moving toward the middle way. So I want to share with you my observation in Australia. And yes, all the countries are learning something from other countries. So for example, Grace Harder, my former colleague from EDUHK, and now she's working in Macquarie University, Australia, you know her. And we have the early years learning framework, Hong Biao, and you know this framework is very famous, Australian framework. And we observed the framework, the early child education framework has 5 departures from traditional white male European norms. Okay, so-called the white male European norms. Okay, we have found the 5 departures. For example, the first departure, we Australians tend to be more favorable to play-based learning. So we want to have more learning. Okay, so we think maybe China is good and the learning is good. So we have to have some more play-based learning, and we have to do quality teacher-child interactions, and we have to do more integrate parts of play-based learning. We have to keep balance between play and adult-generated curriculum experiences. And more than that, we have to focus on learning. So the learning is critical. We have to attach significant weights and values to the importance of learning. And sometimes learning precedes development. So in the previous years, maybe you know, Western countries totally believed in Piaget. So they thought learning cannot go beyond development because development precedes learning. But now we tend to believe that, oh my God, Piaget is totally wrong. So, you know, and me collaborating with Maria, right? She's a super fan of Vygotsky. Okay, she's the advocate of Vygotsky theories in Australia. So everyone today is talking about Vygotsky rather than Piaget. So we believe in that learning is young and can lead development, and curriculum should be more discipline-based rather than focusing on child. And then we have to have intentional teaching. So teaching could be intentional. So be more planned, more programmed. So we have endorsed learning development. We are privileging learning. Intentional teaching could be involved in something that is deliberate and purposive and thoughtful in their decisions and actions. And the focus on teaching and learning could be shifted to the practice teachers rather than children. So in the previous years, we were misled by NAEYC for decades. So we thought child-centered means that all the things will be done and decided by the child, while teacher has no autonomy, no professionalism, no contribution. That's totally wrong. So this is what we highlight in Australian framework. And the outcomes will be something significant. So we have to understand what is knowledge and skills to be achieved in the early years. And then we have to develop strategies and approaches that through the fuse and nexus between play-based learning and outcomes. And the pedagogical skills are also vital to early childhood education. And the last departure we can see is that the high expectations and equity that is a focus on children's learning as a balance between adult-initiated, child-directed, and but a child-initiated and teacher-directed learning and teaching should be balanced. And we have a post-structuralism series on the power, the equity, and social justice in our child settings. So this is what we can see from Australian scholars' perspective. And I can say the Greek minds always think alike. So you found the same thing from the comparison of Norway and Chinese early child education. And I can see the same in Australian part. So that's what I want to give you feedback. What do you think?
Thank you. Thank you. I think it's very thoughtful, and I think that's really nice for me to also have get some very thoughtful feedback from Professor Li, because these days I had some teaching in DNU, and actually I referred the articles written by you and Dr. Wei Peng Yang about the curriculum document analysis. Actually, last year I published one journal article in ECNU ROE about the ESD in ECE inside the curriculum documents in China and Norway. So I think we did find some similar patterns, not only in the concept like ESD, but also in the concept of learning and play. So I think quite thoughtful. I think I will get the reference you mentioned written by Grace Harbour later. And thank you again, Professor Li.
Hongbiao, anything to comment?
Right.
Do you have any quick comments?
Yeah, okay. I think the table you just showed is very helpful, not only for me study, but also for all study, because all study is also about, the children's participation in play. We are also inspired by the 5 departures. Yeah.
Thank you. Then, Mingyi, I think you are so good to lead this topic between Norway and China. Today we Chinese scholars are comparing Chinese education against all the countries all over the world. So we need, and with this comparison, we can understand what we can do and what are the strengths of our Chinese education and what are weaknesses. So this will help all of us, right? Thank you. So I think if you have no more questions and no more questions from others, you can leave now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your.
Thank you. Hopefully.
Thank you. Okay, then the second one will be from Dr. Chen Shaoren. Hongbiao,
Yes,
your
yes.
team, right?
Shaoren and me.
Great.
Shaoren.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So Shaoren, could you help share? Yes, good. Okay. Share the screen. Yeah, this is a study also about children's participation in play. In me study, her focus is on teachers' roles, teachers' perceptions, teachers' roles in facilitating children's participation. In our study, we move to the focus to another, we think, very important group of stakeholders in early childhood education settings. That is, children's peers, the peers. So in this study, we just use social network analysis on the influence of peer relationship on children's difficulties in play participation. So this is a study, conducted by Dr. Shaoren Chen, who is working in Liaoning Normal University, and me. I'm from the Chinese University of Hong Kong. So now I will pass the time to Shaoren. Okay.
Okay. Hello everyone. My name is Shaoren Chen. I'm from Liaoning Normal University. My major is the preschool education. Now I will introduce our research. Our research, the topic is the influence of the peer relationship children's difficulties in play participation, a social network analysis. Okay, I will introduce, I'm going to share it. I'm sorry. I'm going to share it with you from the four rest aspects. The first, the rest purpose. The second, research design. The third, research findings. The fourth, research implications. The first one is the research purpose. I think play is the best way for children to learn. When they are playing, children can give the full play to their potential. So I will introduce the research, the backgrounds. Play an important role in the early education. The influence of the peer interaction on children's physical and mental development cannot be ignored. The third peer relationship has a positive effect on the children's difficulty in participating into play. So there are the three reasons we choose the topic to research, and we find some result at my topic. There are the three very important concepts involved in my research. First, let me introduce the first core concept. It's named children's play behavior. The behavior of the children driven by their own view, but arranged by non-adults who rely on the cognitive basis and obtain pleasant experience with the help of the certain materials or tools. The second concept is the child-peer relationship. You children's play activities with the similar levels of the psychical and mental development. The relationship between the children is generated spontaneously by children and has a significant interactive nature. This is the second concept. The third concept is the most important concept in our research. Is the children play the participation. Its meaning is driven by the intrinsic needs to play and influenced by their own personality and external factors. Children adopt a diversified peer communication skills and join in the small group of the peer play. There are the three meaning of the core concept. It's very important for our research. It's the basis of my research. Okay, we introduce the second part, research the design. We choose the 43 children at the age of 5 to 6 years, including 26 boys and 17 girls. They are from the Dalian City, Liaoning Province. And we choose some three children cases. 3 children are selected as individual cases, including a popular child, a child who was easily rejected, and a child who was easily neglected. So we conduct, okay. After introducing the research, the object of the study, we will discuss the 2 important research methods in detail. The first method is the peer nomination methods. There are the 3 aspects. The first one, the relationship between the peer play is described through the data analysis. The second, the relationship between the children's peers becomes a quantitative representation. The third, the study analyzes the situation of the children in play by identifying different types of the peer relationships. Peer nomination methods is the implication. its implication in our research. The second method is the social network analysis. We think social network analysis will be employed to analyze the distribution of the children with the different types of the peer relationships and their corresponding play participation behavior. And the social network analysis is helpful to show the position of the children in play from the perspective of the group relations and analyze the level of the children's participation in play by the combining the existing nomination result of the children. That's the two important methods in our research. The third part is the research funding. In this part, I will share the network diagram of the peer relationships and the corresponding research results. The figure 1 is the network analysis diagram of the children's participation into the play activities. The communication activities and group activity level of the children involved in play need to be proved. The figure 2 is integrate network children's participation in the play group. There was a significant difference in the size of the area in the numerical result integrate. Integrate is the very importance. But there was a significant difference in the size of the area in the numeral the result of the integrate. The figure 3, the children's play into the social network intermediary center. There is a significant difference in the degree of the children being close to others in the participation of the play activities. The figure 4, the children's play is close to the center of the social network. Individuals and groups have a different degree of the dependence, and some children have a positive impact on supporting other children's play participation. And the finding, we think whereas the peer relationships give rise to the difference of the children status in the play group. And the second, whereas the peer relationships can create a series of problems for children to participate in play in different situations. And the third, peer relationships influence the children's behavioral mode, strategy, selection, and integration result in their play participation. And the research in publication is and there are four aspects all about our originality. The first one is the study focused in depth on children's peer culture and its actual performance in play. The second, this study provides an effective approach to analyzing in the difficulty in play participation. The third, this study proposed a set of this strategies to support children's play behaviors. The end, this study advocated the comprehensive promotion of the children's independent development and respect for children's spirit of play, play the spirit. That's all my say. Thanks everyone. Thanks.
Okay, and thanks to Dr. Chen and Professor Hong. First in Hongbiao, do you have any added on points or you?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, I do have.
Okay.
Just like what I have said, I think the table Professor Li Hui just showed is very, very helpful also for our study. My quick response is, in this study, we, Dr. Shaoren and I will consider how to include Vygotsky's activity theory into the theoretical foundation. Because our study is on peer relationship, peer interactions, right? So I think Vygotsky's activity theory will be helpful. Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Am I with you?
Okay.
Okay. So the point. Oh, great. Thank you so much. So the point is, we will consider how to, integrate the activity theory into our study as a theoretical foundation, inspired by Professor Li Hui's introduction.
Thank you, Hongbiao. Thank you so much. Okay, then we come to the third one. Will be presented by Dr. Mabel Ensilas from London Metropolitan University. Coincidentally, we are going to have a similar university in Hong Kong, the new so-called the Hong Kong Metropolitan University. So you'll be surprised. Okay. Okay. Is Mabel there?
Yes.
Yes, please. Your turn. Do you want to share with us your screen?
I'm here. Sorry. I don't know what happened to Zoom. I don't know if you can hear me. Can you hear me?
We can hear you clearly, crystal clear.
I cannot see the screen.
We can hear you. Very good. How about the screen? Do you want to share your PowerPoint with us? So, everyone may know that this moment is just 6 o'clock in the morning, so it's quite early. I'm sure Mabel just got up from bed. I'm so sorry for this arrangement because this webinar has collected all the international scholars from London, Africa, Singapore, Hong Kong, Australia, and New Zealand. So we have a bunch of scholars allocated from all over the world. So it's a kind of from day to night arrangement. So all of us have to sacrifice our sleep time, breakfast time, lunch time, and dinner time to do this webinar. So this is globalization, okay? And I understand it's not easy for everyone. And I really appreciate your participation and contribution indeed. And I hope maybe I can find her laptop or mobile phone, because it seems that she's still exploring her device. Okay,
no.
come back. Okay, come back. Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, perfect. Let me see if I can share my slides. Apparently, I should not use my video because apparently my Wi-Fi today is in a bad mood. So I'm going to just not share my video. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. My apologies. Something happened with my Wi-Fi just now. Okay.
Okay, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I will share my slides then. Can you see them?
Wonderful.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So my presentation is about my research project, and the title is Fonts of Knowledge at Learning Maths in the Early Years. My project took place in England and in Mexico with a grant by the British Academy. And what I did is I will explain during the process. I created a board game for supporting the learning of math for reception classes here in England and early years settings in Mexico. The children were 4 to 5 years old, and that's how the project was conducted, the research was conducted. So the content of my presentation, I will talk a little bit about the context and the literature. Then I will discuss some aspects of the methodology, and then I will present some excerpts from my data or some comments about it. I had a first analysis of the data, but I am still doing this work, and I will present some elements for a conclusion. And I will do this in a fluid manner, so I will not go systematically in that specific order. The context of the project is I was interested in discussing the continuity and discontinuity between pre-compulsory and compulsory education, meaning what happens before children start primary school, but at the same time, what happens particularly with the cognitive development of children in relationship to mathematics. And in this context, I was interested in the relationship between home and school and play and pedagogy. Not opening that as a dichotomy, but how could we work in partnership with parents and at the same time find what is the link between play and pedagogy. However, I was not working with the idea of child-initiated play, but how a play with rules could be used for working together with parents. So I created a board game. Well, I have to say a little bit more about the perspective. The idea of the context and child development has to do with the future. So, so it has to do not only in terms of what has happened in the past, but the idea of the future is an important aspect of activity theory and a perspective that considers that culture has a very important role in child development. So past, present, and future play together at the present time. In terms of mathematics, the idea of the kind of things that children are expected to learn, they need to understand numbers up to 10. And actually, in the previous version, they had to understand up to 20 when I created the board game, especially linking number and values and in order. So these aspects are very important predictors, also predictors of child success later in school, and then possibly later in terms of possibilities of employment. And it had been shown in some studies that this happens. So mathematics are a very important area that we need to support. And there has been this discussion about what is the role of the early years practitioner and what is the role of the parents, what can happen there. So, for example, the kind of things that children need to master at this stage is subitizing, which is actually recognizing when there is a larger number of objects in one set or another, and numerical patterns recognition. So they need to understand practically and visually certain patterns, and also concepts like sharing, for example. The other aspect that I considered when I created the board game was that the relationship in school is, in terms of parents supporting mathematics, is quite challenging. Parents consider that mathematics are a very difficult subject, and normally it is difficult for them to engage in that. So that's as well why I chose to work from the level of early years, because that was a point where the mathematical knowledge that parents have for their everyday life could be helpful for them to support children. So the board game is actually part of an intervention project in which I created this board game. The research involved the use of the board game to support a systematic but playful approach to mathematics. The idea was to play together, parents, children, and teachers. And actually, I also brought my students from the university, and we were playing together as facilitators. So that involved as well a process of training for the students and having discussions with them, which could, actually were helpful for their modules at the university, but they came to facilitate these playful activities. The teachers were actually as well facilitators, or they were giving support to the group, going around while the families played. And it was, as I mentioned, in a reception class in England and 2 early year settings in Mexico. And then the idea of the project was an intervention. It's an intervention study based on the use of board game, in which the board game it has the rules of a board game. Children have to be jumping from one space to the next one, from one cell to the next one, and then they had different challenges. So there were cards of challenges, and it was the intention of the game was to create this systematic and playful environment that I mentioned before, in which parents could support their children, the children's learning of maths. So the game, the first intention of the game was that it was fun. And then it's a game with rules, as I mentioned before. Maths are used to play. So this is an important thing. Sometimes when you, in my literature review, before creating the board game, I went through the literature about board games at this stage. There is not so much about board games at this stage, but still I could find some literature in which, for example, the fact, like plays that Monopoly, I don't know if it is known all over the world, but it has the board has the numbers that go around the square. And that's very confusing for children. So this board game that I created has a board that is a number line, sorry. It's a number line, and children jump up and down according to the result of the dices. And the dices actually are an important element of the board game. It's important for citation and recognition of patterns. At this age, at this stage of development, some children start recognizing already, for example, that the dice is the dots on the dice is a 5. But some other children have been counting the dots to know what is the result. So what I was going to mention about the intention of the game is that it was fun because the intention was not to put maths as just as the challenge of maths. The children, the board game has different intentions. Children explore using the board game in different ways. I mean, playing with different things. There are fantastic animals. There are challenges. They sing songs. But mathematics are used to play. So mathematics are implicitly embedded in the board game. It's not the center. There is never a challenge like how much is 2 plus 3, but the challenges are more cover all the areas of the early years curriculum in England and in Mexico, actually, in both countries. So for example, one example of an activity is Okay, while we count up to 10, you have to go and knock at that door 3 times. So the child has to run, has to, knock at the door and then come back. And the counting up to 10 has a meaning, which is offering the context for this playful activity to happen. So the challenge is a challenge in which numbers are part of it. In terms of cognitive development, processes of internalization and externalization place simultaneously. So on the one hand, there is the internalization of social experiences, and at the same time, the externalization through actions and participation in social practices. And that's something that is behind the creation of the board game. So the board game is a tool, and in turn, mathematics is the tool to play the board game, as I mentioned before. The game includes areas identified by Siraj Blatchford as home learning activities. So some activities have to do, as I was mentioning, with literacy, with expressive arts and design, with physical development, and these activities are combined in the board game. Through a series of problem-solving situations, then, children go beyond the usual thing that we do in early year settings, which is counting, sorting, and naming shapes, because they involve, as I mentioned before, movement, singing, drawing, and collaborating challenges across all the areas of the EYFS. The EYFS is the Early Years Foundation stage. Sorry, I should have spelled that completely. Okay, playing for learning advance and social and justice as well is another aspect that I consider in the creation and the piloting of the game. So on the one hand, there is an emphasis in the board game on sustainability. Mathematics is a tool for children to develop awareness of the social. So this context it has problem solving, as I had mentioned, the emphasis on sustainability. And it supports the development of children agency, and the school areas in which the research took place are areas that include or involve minoritized communities, both in the UK and in Mexico. So the idea is I use Rogov to explain this in terms of using working in the zone of proximal development, and then Siraj Blatchford has this quotation in which she acknowledges how the resources, activities, environments in which children have opportunities to learn are important, and all this is immersed in a particular context. So early childhood learning and development provides a significant challenge to the early years profession in terms of having to have this play and pedagogy mixed together, or how to say that, intertwined in a way in which they both are the same. The idea of the board game, the board game constitutes this boundary object, and the boundary object is a boundary object between home and school, and between the university and the school. Well, the preschool in this case. Either the reception class. Reception in the UK, reception is for 4 and 5 years old, and it is very commonly inserted in the primary school. So it's part of the early years foundation stage, which is the curriculum for the early years. But at the same time, it is a preparation. It's considered very much a preparation. And I think there is a tension always between this self-initiated play and adult-led activities. In terms of, in Mexico, on the other hand, primary school starts at 6. So I was working with children in the second year of early years. they were going to be another year in the early years setting. However, there is not such a big difference between what they have to achieve in those countries at that age. Later, the distance is much bigger. So this is the idea of a boundary object. In early years as well, we have this tension between child-initiated play and adult-guided play, and how this actually it's a continuous and it's a continuum. It means that the idea is how to integrate the children's and adults' purposes to capture that as well in the board game, and is part of the idea. So, what is the role of the parents in this game? In principle, it was assumed that there was no need of preparing the parents in anticipation. As I was mentioning, when I started the project, I realized that, well, I thought that parents with their mathematical learning, they could very easily help the children. But it was more complex than that. I will mention a little bit of my data in a minute. For example, parents have to help the child to define a mission in the board game. They read cards, they count large numbers of animals because it's about taking care of animals in a park. They compare feed and animals, for example, and they help sometimes moving the character. The interesting thing is that, as I will mention in a minute, parents didn't know how to help children in terms of maths. So one of the concepts that is very important here in my research is the concept of funds of knowledge, because they provide funds of knowledge provide children with an intuitive knowledge base. So teachers, in principle, could use this to support them. And in this idea of the board game, actually funds of knowledge are present in two ways. They are present in the child because of the individual personal history of the child, and they are present in the parents. And in Mexico, I work in a Mayan area in Yucatan, which is the peninsula where Cancun is, because most of the people know Cancun. So in that area, more or less, I worked in the city of Merida, which is not that close to Cancun, but it's in the same peninsula. The idea of partnership with parents through this playful pedagogy, and then funds of knowledge become life in a way, in terms of you find the relationship between parents and children inside the classroom when you invite parents to play the board game. Funds of knowledge also become funds of identity, and our work becomes culturally embedded, in terms of the family's beliefs, skills, knowledge, and different social practices. And it was interesting to observe how the parents were relating to children in both contexts. Funds of knowledge become funds of identity because they have to do with how children self-define how they express themselves and how they understand themselves. So all these aspects are very important in relation to the project. I am, as I was saying, I had the first analysis, but the idea is I will explore further how these concepts become part of an explanation for what happened in the classroom. In terms of mathematical development, the idea is that children develop mathematically through solving problems and communicating mathematically, reasoning mathematically. So I put here some examples, though they are not from my study, but it's like playing together, children are participating and creating and learning and developing. So the idea of the playful pedagogy is not to qualify this age, but it's actually to work in a playful manner. The board game aims to address this tension between the two dimensions of play and equity at the same time. Why I mention this tension? Because if we go only to play, we don't support enough the development in terms of the cognitive development in the area of mathematics, we can be missing one element of equity that is important in mathematics. Sorry, I think I'm running out of time. Do I still have like 5 minutes?
Yes, you can. Please go ahead. We have enough time because the first and second presentation has saved time of the following sessions. You have enough time.
Thank you. So, the idea is that there are still lots of challenges for the board game in terms of production or a wider pilot using school data, but possibly, and now I am moving to work in the voluntary sector and work with communities. But so the idea of the playful pedagogy is to offer a systematic approach to learning maths. I will just present a little glimpse to my data. There were 3 themes that I have identified so far in the analysis. The implicit communication between parents and children, health, which changes culturally and you know, individually as well in terms of the relationship of the parent and the child, and also between the facilitator and the children, and the idea of competition and collaboration. So in terms of implicit communication, the physical contact varied a lot in the 2 contexts in which I did my study. And it was very interesting. It was really evident from the very first minute that, for example, the physical contact was much higher. In Mexico, like children, for example, sat very commonly on the lap of the, at least there was in, I didn't explain about the practical organization, but it was small groups playing the board game with 1 facilitator at least each, 1 observer, and the parents of the children. In some cases, most of the parents in Mexico, most of the parents attended, and they were seated children. And it was very common that at least 1 parent in each group had the child seated on their laps. So it was that quite an interesting thing. While in the UK, there was some multicultural context. It was a multicultural context, but parents didn't carry the child or didn't sit their children on their laps. So that is something that started being evident from the very beginning. Also, there was a lot of body language communication. There is a lot of work from Barbara Rogoff about this and other people that shows how this body language happens. At this point, children have been more into the school system, although it's early years. And there is, I didn't find the same kind of evidence that had been found in toddlers, but still you could see that there is some body communication, there is some body language that is taking place between the parents and the children. And then the meaning of help changed a lot. Sometimes parents interpreted that helping the child to play was to give half of the answer. And the other extreme was to take over the activity. I spoke to parents. I had these informal interviews, and they were they wanted that the child could do the thing, so they were doing instead of allowing the child to do it. So we started as well having some sessions with the parents in which we were discussing how to help the children in terms of maths. And that was something that emerged there. So it's something that I am interested in discussing. And finally, there is the challenges were not only individual challenges; there were also challenges that involve collaboration and working together. Like challenge, for example, how can we, among all of us, we have to find 20 stones, for example. So children came. And they brought the number of stones, and then the challenge was they brought 18. So we needed to find more and so on. And the facilitators as well, we had to have training before and after the sessions so that it was what was happening. So the board game actually supported the children. There are some evidence of learning in the process, but it was a lot of learning, not only taking place from the part of the children, but also parents were learning and the facilitators were learning. Of course, I was learning as well. Okay, so the context and child development. Well, again, I come back to this idea, how this idea of potential future is important for continuing the development of this project, and then this apparent tension, I think, can be solved with a different approach. So that's it from me. I don't know. That's it.
Perfect timing. Wonderful, because the next session will start in 2 minutes or 1 minute. Okay, Lawrence, hello. Here we come, Dr. Lauren Judy. How are you? Are you in Tanzania, right?
Yes, I'm in Tanzania now. I'm studying terrific. How are you doing, Professor Lee?
Yes, wonderful. We are all looking forward to your presentation. It seems that you are in the good time in the morning, 10 o'clock, right?
Yeah, it is morning here. And of course, congratulations for the productivity. But journal articles is not a joke.
Thank you. Do you have PowerPoint to share with us? Your assistant, your colleague will going to do that for you? Or you do share your laptop? Okay, thank you. Sure. Your time. Okay, yeah, 20 minutes.
Yeah, of course. I think Dr. Pambas Tandika is going to start to present. He will present the conceptual part. I will present the findings part. Please,
excellent.
Dr. Tandika, can you please take over?
Maybe if you can manage Dr. Didier to share the screen, okay, so that I proceed.
Okay. I will share the screen. Where is my screen? Yeah. Can you please see it?
Yeah, right.
Okay. Dr. Tandika, can you please?
Yes, thank you, Didier, and thank you, panelists, for also allowing us to have the time to present. Our presentation is based on the fact that we all understand that play is used for, especially play-based strategies are used for implementing the preschool curriculum. And in our case, we designed this study based on the fact that there are limited studies that are focusing on play and learning in our classes, and not only in Tanzania, but also in Sub-Saharan Africa. So this study comes to enlighten the practitioners and those who are in the planning, so that they are aware of what it is really required when we are talking of the play, and especially with the learning in preschools. So it is in that case, this study was designed to answer 3 research questions. Can you move the slide, Dr. Lee?
This next?
Yes.
Can you see it? I move to the next.
Yeah, just move to the next.
This one?
Yeah, so this is what I was trying to say, that in Tanzania, for instance, our curriculum is being implemented using the play-based teaching and learning. And there are 6, and the use of the play is among the 6 principles guiding the implementation and the provision of pre-primary education. And in the curriculum, we have some proposed activities like information, sharing games, the things of lifting objects, pushing and pulling objects. So these are some of the play-based activities that are proposed in the curriculum for when we are intending to implement our curriculum so that our children they grow and also learn. Also, can you push to the next?
Okay. Yeah.
So, though there is such realization, we find that understanding of play and especially play-based learning in Tanzania, it is limited to the. Can you move to the next?
Okay.
It is limited in a way that teachers also intend to use the use of the play inappropriately. Hence, yes, can you move the next? So these are the 3 questions that guided our study so that we expect those who are in the implementation, those in the decision making, use the findings to appropriately ensure the curriculum is implemented, and especially through the use of play. So we have those 3 research questions. Can you move to the next, please? Yeah. So in that case, we sampled the public primary schools in the urban and the rural areas, purposefully because the 2 contexts have different contexts in terms of resources and particularly the awareness of the parents as well as implementing partners to the pre-primary curriculum. So in that process, we were able to obtain 40 school principals and 80 classroom teachers. And we had 120 parents who were selected to participate in this study. Can you move, please? So we use various methods in collecting data so that we triangulate the findings, and we use the semi-structured interview with the school principals and teachers, and we also use the focus group with the parents. And ideally, we also we did a critical review of our education training policy of 2014, which is in implementation now, and we also reviewed the pre-primary curriculum syllabi and the primary school syllabus as well. Next, please. So interpretation of data analysis was used in the process of coding and classifying data, qualitative data. And the coding was obtained, helped us to obtain relevant text, identifying relevant ideas, developing themes, theoretical constructs, research concerns, and theoretical narratives in that process of data analysis. So please next. So to ensure the objectivity of the study, communicability was also observed, transparency, and coherence, and as well the bracketing was also considered, because we all know that we ensured that our biases, our experiences did not bias this study. So we had to bracket our past and current experiences regarding play and its applicability in the implementation of pre-primary curriculum. Next, please.
Findings.
So the part of the findings, I will leave it to Dr. Li.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tandika. Basically, the findings were quite interesting. We found that when it came to the status of pre-primary play in Tanzania, there were two related findings. In the existing curriculum documents, as mentioned earlier, we found that the curriculum instructs that children should learn via play. And as such, teachers were supposed to structure their classroom practices by aligning them with play-based approach. However, when we interviewed teachers and school principals, we found that there were some who were of the view that play has got a very high status in the curriculum documents, but some regarded that play has got a very low status. And those who considered play as having a high status in the curriculum documents were of the view that we are giving much attention to play, while in fact children need to learn. There is no way you can structure children to play, and perhaps some parents, when they come to visit a classroom and find that children are just playing, they will not be happy to see them just playing. So they thought that we are giving a lot of attention to play, so it has got a very high status. Other teachers and especially school principals were of the view that play need to be given a low status. Children should learn the basic literacy and the numerous skills, not just playing. And also, we were interested to understand how teachers and the parents conceptualized play. There were some who reported that children should be given a chance to play because they have the right to play. So to them, play is not part of learning, it's just part of giving what is the right for their children. And there were some, about more than 60%, who considered play as a strategy to facilitate learning in a pre-primary classroom. However, they were very quick to caution that even though play is a very useful strategy to facilitate learning, it is important, critically important, to understand that parents do not want children to play. To them, playing is wastage of time. And also, other parents and teachers reported that play is just a fun activity for children, just after studies. It means it's not a strategy for children to learn, but it's just a recreation activities after hectic schedule of teaching and learning. So it should not be given much importance. And also we're interested to understand how a typical pre-primary classroom in Tanzania do structure play. Findings indicated that play was just a rare phenomenon. In the existing official curriculum documents, even though they instructed that children should learn via play, but we found that at a classroom level, teachers spent just 2 30-minute sessions per week for play. I'm talking about structured play for children to learn. And also findings indicated that in some contexts, play was just an everyday phenomenon whereby children were allowed to play unstructuredly at home or at school. And as such, it just occurred naturally with children's initiation. In other words, play was not for learning. It was just a funny activities, and so children were just allowed to play with no specific purpose in mind, with no objective to achieve, apart from just having fun. And in another context, we found that play was just used as a resource phenomenon. Children were just allowed to play during break time, and here is where we came up with the title of our paper. One of the parents reported that, please, you do not know what is happening in our context. You need to distinguish between play and learning. Play is just play, and the learning is learning. You don't need to mix them. They are different. So we cannot waste our money paying for fees for our children to learn and then just go to school to play. That's how we came up with the title of this paper. And this paper, of course, I mean, the findings of this paper has got some implication, both for policy and for practice. For policy, that yes, we have the policy documents do instruct that children should learn through play, but in practice, what is happening at the classroom level is contrary to what the policy is instructing. Therefore, there is a need to have a massive pre-service and in-service training for teachers on how to use play as a strategy for children's learning at a pre-primary level. And there is a need to have a massive public awareness campaign to help parents and other pre-primary stakeholders to understand the importance of play at a pre-primary school level. Also, there is a need, this is very critical for pre-primary authorities to understand the importance of play. There were reported cases during this start that school principals were technically not happy with pre-primary school teachers using play-based approach to facilitate learning. They considered that using this approach doesn't really help children to learn. And I think this problem is closely associated with the fact that in Tanzania we have a pre-primary class attached to a nearby primary school. In other words, pre-primary education is simply like a downward extension of primary school. And so as such, it is not really given due weight, even though we understand it is critically important to use play at a pre-primary classroom. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lawrence. Well done. It's very interesting. Now, this afternoon session on play has closed, and we have time for discussion. And we have Dr. Edgar Young, who is the discussant for this session. And let's invite Dr. Edgar Young. Edgar, it's your turn, please.
Thank you. Hopefully, can you see my slides?
Yes, perfect.
Sure, we do.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed listening to the presentations by the authors from different areas of the world. It's really great for us to have such an opportunity to discuss and to have academic dialogues. So I will just briefly comment on the 4 papers just presented. And it was such a great opportunity for me to learn from all of you about such an important topic on play and learning in early childhood. So as you can see that for the first paper, it was really great because it has a comparative perspective. One is China from the east, and then the Norway from the west. So it is actually a very good comparison for us to understand the position of play in learning in early childhood. So as you can see from the structure, the model I'm showing you, originated from Professor Elizabeth Wood, actually play, it is a continuum. So it's great that this study has a very good opportunity to understand how different cultures may have different levels of play in early childhood learning, or a different combination between play and learning. So it could be very extreme. So the culture, the society may appreciate free play so much, but according to some previous research done in the Chinese context, especially the one by Professor Rao and Professor Li in 2009, there was a concept called edu-play, which is education and play, okay? So it's more like in the middle, rather than going to the extremes such as free play or like only work, no play at all. So it could be possible that in China, in Professor Li Mingyi's research, that play is more like a form of edu-play, which is consistent with previous research evidence. While in Norway, we are really curious to know, would Norway be more play-oriented, or now after the effects of globalization and then neoliberalism, would it be more towards academic learning? We don't know, and we are really interested to read more findings from Professor Li Mingyi's research. And but I have a question actually for this paper, is about the comparison of the play activities between China, the Chinese and Norwegian centers, because they use different examples. While for the Chinese center, they selected the indoor play example, while in the Norwegian center, they selected an outdoor play activity. So I'm wondering, how could they compare the two different play examples? Yeah, because in different contexts, the play activities could be very different. Okay, so that's my comment for the first paper. And because Professor Li Mingyi is not here, I would like to also be sharing with her a bit later. Well, for the second paper, I really learned a lot about the new approach, the new methodology for researching on children's peer relationship and their play behaviors. So this really has a great methodological contribution to the research in the early childhood field using the SNA, social network analysis, which looks more, for me, is more evidence-based, more evidence-driven, and I think it aligns with the situated learning theory, or the one mentioned by Professor Ying Hongbiao about the Vygotsky's theory. So actually, it would be great if the authors can include the theoretical rationales for such social network analysis. But at the same time, I do see the promise or the potential of such a research, because based on the quantitative social network analysis, it could be possible for us to understand how different play behaviors may lead to different levels of child developmental outcomes, and how would teachers' role play a role? Okay, how would teachers play a role in children's play activities? So it would be great if in the future we can explore more based on the new contribution of such an SNA approach. Well, for the third paper, I really like the research because Dr. Mabel Insners from London really offered us rich information about playful pedagogy and math learning in the early years. So they show us how to use a board game as the playful approach to children's early math learning, not just in England, but also in Mexico. But based on this, all the other information and some evidence, I would suggest that it would be great if in the future that the authors, the researchers can step further from showing us how such a playful pedagogy can be used to how effective is such an approach, such a playful pedagogy, especially about using board game, right? So it is great that we can collect, it could be like either qualitative data about stakeholders' perspectives on the effects of board game play, or some quantitative data so that we can understand how would board game affect children's development, such as their math knowledge, as well as spatial skills, and so on. So it would be great if we can also do some experimental research or correlational research about this topic. So actually it's also very, very interesting. Okay, so the last but not the least, Dr. Laurent and Pabas from Africa, from Tanzania, share with us a more cultural situated play or learning activities in the early child settings in Tanzania. So it was great that we learned about some interesting findings. There were actually varying levels of integrating play in the early child curriculum across different centers, different preschools. It is not identical or universal in the Tanzania settings. But still, because they also analyze the policy discourse and of course teachers' perceptions and practices, they actually found something that was shown in previous research, that's the policy practice gap in early child practices. So actually, although the policy may advocate play so much, but in the practice, it may not be authentically implemented. It may not be strictly followed by the practitioners. So actually, there could be huge tensions between teachers and parents' educational beliefs. So how can we deal with such tensions, contradictions, and variations? So we need to rethink and to see if there's something related more to the context. So that's all for me, and I would like to turn over to Professor Li Hui.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Well done. And let's open the floor to questions from the audience. You can type in the chat room, or you can raise a hand, or you can just jump in and speak out. Any questions from the audience or feedback from the authors? So authors, I guess you have got feedback from one of the guest editors, Dr. Wei-Peng Yang. Maybe, do you have any questions for us as guest editors? We can address your questions and problems, because we're expecting your paper for this special issue. So Lawrence and Hongbiao and all of you. So thank you so much. So questions, please. If you have any questions to ask, you can also ask. For example, we are very concerned about the rigorous of your research methods. Okay, so when you write your paper, please make sure your method part is well written and we pay attention to reliability, validity, and you can now jump to the conclusion without very sound evidence. So that's important, right? And Lauren, you mentioned reliability check. That's good. So because even qualitative studies can have reliability, trustfulness, right? And
excuse me, were you asking me a question, Professor Li?
No, I'm commenting on your good behavior that is always mentioning about reliability when you do qualitative studies.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. If none of you has any questions about this session, maybe we can close earlier and we can take a longer break, because the next session we're going to start around in 20 minutes. So please bear in mind that we'll keep it the same channel, the same Zoom link. So you have no need to leave this meeting. Just mute yourself and unmute yourself. Then hold on for 20 minutes. We'll come back for 20 minutes because some of you may need time to take breakfast. Some of you may need time to take the supper or lunchtime. So because we're around the world from the east to the west, covering all the time zones, okay? And maybe I'm sure you need a breakfast, okay? I'll give you 20 minutes. Okay.
And I have some words, And during the break, we have the 20 minutes right now, Paul. So during the break, we have prepared 2 videos for our audience and authors. One video is dedicated, made by Wei Peng, and have a very quick introduction to our special issue and our journal. And the other video is about the latest promotion video we made for our latest issue, Beyond Wellbeing. And I think you can get the general idea of what kind of things our editor and our journal are doing. Yes.
Fabulous.
Okay, Gia, would you please share the videos for our audience?
Great.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll be back in 20 minutes.
Break.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, we can't hear the voice. Possibly you have to share the computer sound.
Okay. Sorry. Can you hear the voice?
No.
No.
Actually, I think you can just click settings, view options, and then you will go to the sharing computer sound.
Sharing the computer sounds okay. Okay. How about now? Can you hear the voice? 尤老师
Have you started?
Okay.
Maybe if you when you share,
we can't hear it.
Can you hear?
No, maybe if you stop sharing and share again, and
Okay.
there is a little box there that you just tick at the bottom left.
Okay.
At the moment of sharing, there is a little box on the left bottom side. It is still not passing through. if you share and at the moment before choosing the window that you want to share, there is on the left-hand side at the bottom of that pop-up window, there is a little box that you need to tick that says share computer sound.
The computer sounds. Oh,
thank you, everyone.
I found it. Okay.
Yeah, I can just start sharing my video to all of you, and later probably they will figure it out.
Yeah, I already found it. Yeah.
Do you want to share or? Yeah. Then I will stop. What do you think? Like, Jiyue, would you like to share?
Okay. I already found the bottom, the note. Okay.
You have to start sharing, and then you can share the sound.
Okay.
ECNU ROE is welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. I'm Wei-Pen Yang from the Singapore University of Social Sciences. This webinar is held by the ECNU Review of Education editorial team. ECNU ROE is an international and open access journal initiated by the East China Normal University, ECNU, in Shanghai, China. This peer-reviewed journal aims to publish impactful research and innovative articles related to current educational issues in China and abroad. The journal encourages articles using interdisciplinary perspectives and embracing contextual sensitivity. ECNU sponsors the journal by covering open access article processing charge, so there is no charge for the authors. As stated by Professor Alan Luke, educational reforms are complex and embedded contextual, cultural, and historical stories. This special issue, co-edited by Professor Marek Tassar from the University of Auckland in New Zealand, Professor Hui Li from the Macquarie University in Australia, and myself, aims to include a wide collection of studies looking into the role of culture in childhood experiences and curriculum making in diverse contexts. It's our greatest pleasure and honor to have received contributions from authors all over the world, representing perspectives and evidence from China, England, Scotland, the United States, New Zealand, Norway, Tanzania, Kazakhstan, UAE, Brazil, Singapore, and so on. Today's webinar will be a milestone of our international dialogue and academic debates about the interconnection between culture, childhood, and curriculum, as well as the networking of global researchers in this important field. We hope that our virtual meeting in this difficult time of COVID pandemic will not just support the development of this special issue and its publication, but also help us as a community to rethink the sustainable future for our younger generations. As the lead editor of this special issue, I sincerely look forward to our dialogues and more fruitful teamwork to come. I wish you, all of you, a great experience in joining us. Thank you.
I played another video.
For decades, the goal of education has been to improve literacy and make students proficient in subjects like mathematics and science. But But in recent years, a new trend has emerged. Faced with the increasing prevalence of anxiety and depression among students, education systems have shifted their focus to student well-being. Even the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development has extended the scope of its program for international student assessment to include student well-being as a core component, and policymakers, think tanks, and entire nations are following suit. Educators have welcomed this long overdue shift globally and are enthusiastically pursuing it in their classrooms. This brings us to an important question. Do we really know what student well-being means? To answer this, the September 2020 special issue of ECNU Review of Education brings together various perspectives on student well-being. In the USA, the approaches to student well-being are numerous and diverse, but the way in which each approach understands and relates to other concerns is different. In Singapore, student well-being is seen as an indirect outcome of an otherwise holistic education. In Mexico, where stress and boredom are common among students, educators want their system to be more purposeful. They believe that any intrinsically motivating form of learning will eventually lead to well-being. China, a country known for its rich traditions, is focused on cultivating competencies among its people in skills that are unique to its culture. Korea is battling problems of self-alienation among its students so that they can relate to the world around them in a more wholehearted manner. England has a history of prioritizing spiritual development as a part of education, and the way forward is to elevate this strategy to an international level of schooling. We need to discuss our differing views, examine our beliefs, question our assumptions, and develop a clear understanding of what student well-being really means, so that we can work together to serve the highest purpose of education for the sake of all students worldwide. We need to identify limitations in our pursuit of student well-being so that we can go back to focusing on the timeless purposes of education, achieving individual wholeness and flourishing as humans. This is especially important against the backdrop of the COVID-19 pandemic. As other professionals put themselves on the front line for the sake of the human community, educators have an obligation to go beyond all current understandings of well-being and restore the function of education to its original grandeur. To find out more about how education is changing around the world, check out the special issue of ECNU Review of Education.
不同学生的上
Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. I'm Wei-Pen Yang from the Singapore University of Social Sciences. This webinar is held by the ECNU Review of Education editorial team. ECNU ROE is an international and open access journal initiated by the East China Normal University, ECNU, in Shanghai, China. This peer-reviewed journal aims to publish impactful research and innovative articles related to current educational issues in China and abroad. The journal encourages articles using interdisciplinary perspectives and embracing contextual sensitivity. ECNU sponsors the journal by covering open access article processing charge, so there is no charge for the authors. As stated by Professor Alan Luke, educational reforms are complex and embedded contextual, cultural, and historical stories. This special issue, co-edited by Professor Merrick Tassar from the University of Auckland in New Zealand, Professor Hui Li from the Macquarie University in Australia, and myself, aims to include a wide collection of studies looking into the role of culture in childhood experiences and curriculum making in diverse contexts. It's our greatest pleasure and honor to have received contributions from authors all over the world, representing perspectives and evidence from China, England, Scotland, the United States, New Zealand, Norway, Tanzania, Kazakhstan, UAE, Brazil, Singapore, and so on. Today's webinar will be a milestone of our international dialogue and academic debate about the interconnection between culture, childhood, and curriculum, as well as the networking of global researchers in this important field. We hope that our virtual meeting in this difficult time of COVID pandemic will not just support the development of this special issue and its publication, but also help us as a community to rethink the sustainable future for our younger generations. As the lead editor of this special issue, I sincerely look forward to our dialogues and more fruitful teamwork to come. I wish you, all of you, a great experience in joining us. Thank you.
For decades, the goal of education has been to improve literacy and make students proficient in subjects like mathematics and science. But in recent years, a new trend has emerged. Faced with the increasing prevalence of anxiety and depression among students, education systems have shifted their focus to student well-being. Even the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development has extended the scope of its program for international student assessment to include student well-being as a core component, and policymakers, think tanks, and entire nations are following suit. Educators have welcomed this long overdue shift globally and are enthusiastically pursuing it in their classrooms. This brings us to an important question. Do we really know what student well-being means? To answer this, the September 2020 special issue of ECNU Review of Education brings together various perspectives on student well-being. In the USA, the approaches to student well-being are numerous and diverse, but the way in which each approach understands and relates to other concerns is different. In Singapore, student well-being is seen as an indirect outcome of an otherwise holistic education. In Mexico, where stress and boredom are common among students, educators want their system to be more purposeful. They believe that any intrinsically motivating form of learning will eventually lead to well-being. China, a country known for its rich traditions, is focused on cultivating competencies among its people in skills that are unique to its culture. Korea is battling problems of self-alienation among its students so that they can relate to the world around them in a more wholehearted manner. England has a history of prioritizing spiritual development as a part of education, and the way forward is to elevate this strategy to an international level of schooling. We need to discuss our differing views, examine our beliefs, question our assumptions, and develop a clear understanding of what student well-being really means, so that we can work together to serve the highest purpose of education for the sake of all students worldwide. We need to identify limitations in our pursuit of student well-being, so that we can go back to focusing on the timeless purposes of education, achieving individual wholeness and flourishing as humans. This is especially important against the backdrop of the COVID-19 pandemic. As other professionals put themselves on the front line for the sake of the human community, educators have an obligation to go beyond all current understandings of well-being and restore the function of education to its original grandeur. To find out more about how education is changing around the world, check out the special issue of ECNU Review of Education.